Hello, hello. If you can hear me, let me know. If you can't, I'm sure I'll find out eventually. If you're tuning into this stream live, feel free to grab a drink, settle in. It is going to be a little bit of time before we start, as we all get just a little bit comfortable. Timer is on the screen, and if you're watching this in post, of course, you can skip ahead to when we start reading. Again, timer's on the screen. Hello, hello. Welcome back, Winkchin. Nice to see you. How you doing today? Welcome back, Wiseman. Nice to see you. Wise man. Sometimes I look at Wiseman's username and I'm like, is that the area code or his birthday? Hello, Thumper. One of my very first RPGs was Bunnies and Burrows. I am looking forward to this. Awesome. Good to hear. Judd, hello. Nice to see you here. You might notice that the music today is a little bit spooky, a little bit ominous, because I've been informed this is a spooky, ominous game. So if you're hoping for something a little cozy or soft, this might not be the game for you. But truly, I don't know basically anything about this game, so it's going to be a surprise to all of us. Oh, let me post about this. Just a little bit more time before we start. Oh, there was a quote from Watership Down. Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be that kind of game. All right. I think it was a bad idea to have beside me a cup of ginger ale instead of water, but we'll see how that goes for this recording. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the 99 More series, where we live stream the reading of 99 other tabletop RPGs. This is game 77, I think. A very lucky episode. And what better topic to talk about? This is not a good transition. What better topic to talk about than rabbits on a lucky episode? This game is called The Warren. We're going to be covering The Warren by Marshall Miller. This is a game hosted or published by Bully Pulpit Games, the people also behind the game that we covered last week, if you were present, for the Skeletons. So this is by a different author, and I reached out to see if this would be a game that I could cover because the premise seems so interesting. If you're not familiar with Bully Pulpit Games, they're also the crew behind the production or publishing of Fiasco, of Starcrossed, and as we covered, the Skeletons. And I did not know much about this game, but looking through their catalog, I read the premise and really, really enjoyed it. So, with that said, there's not much more ice to break. This game, for at least from reading the premise, is not very sweet and saccharine. There's a little bit of tragic twists to what you would imagine a game about bunnies is about. A point of reference for this kind of game is Watership Down, which is a very, very sad story about rabbits. So we're going to find out what this game is like, and if this is the game for you. For everyone joining us in chat, hello, Mango Cheesecake, hello, Eric. Nice to see you here. Let's get into the game. Will this be properly set? Nope. Let me bounce back. Oh, I didn't set the Chrome tab. That's why. I'm so sorry. I can fix that. Cha-chung. There we go. This is The Warren. You can find this on itch.io, the website where you can find a number of tabletop RPGs. This is specifically on bullypulpitgames.itch.io/the-warren. The link to this is in the description of the video if you'd like to check it out yourself. Now, I'm going to read this little prompt, and you're going to get the vibe of this game for sure. Let's read it. The Warren is a tabletop role-playing game about intelligent rabbits trying to make the best of a world filled with hazards, predators, and worst of all, other rabbits. It is a game about survival and community. There are many creatures, humans included, that are bigger, stronger, meaner, and more numerous than rabbits. The season and the elements do not care that rabbits are only little things. Rabbits cannot hope to meet these threats head-on. Only through speed, wits, and keeping a cool head can rabbits bypass the dangers of the outside world. The Warren is designed for 3 to 5 players and can be played in a single 2-hour session or multiple sessions. Campaign play follows the passing seasons and focuses on changing generations of new rabbits, each with their own stories. Oh, that's kind of cool. Changing generations of new rabbits. This game takes inspiration from Watership Down, 15 Rabbits, and Peter Rabbit. Use a heavily modified version of the game mechanics from Vincent Baker's Apocalypse World, as we're familiar with, powered by the Apocalypse. And one of the major mechanical differences is the use of a shared pool of character moves. Oh, that's cool. Making character creation quick and easy. Reinforces the generational aspect of play, as rabbits are born and later lost or retired from play. System is tightly focused on a set of core moves that reflect the realities of rabbit life. Rabbits don't fight, but they are fast and clever. Cool. This is going to be an interesting read. We're not strangers to the Powered by the Apocalypse system. In fact, we've covered about 4 or 5 games built within that system. I'm going to be very interested in seeing how this game extrapolates the game mechanics of Powered by the Apocalypse into a story that seems to be leaning towards tragedy, or at least a story touched by this melancholy, so to speak. If you want to watch this game played, I've scrolled down just a bit and I realized that there's a number of examples of actual play. If you're looking to see this game on the table, you can check these out now or later. As it usually goes with my live streams, we're not going to be going with any specific pace. We're going to be looking for things that we find interesting or unique about this game, the unique appeal that this has amidst the sea of tabletop RPGs. And if you want to find this game and play it, you can find it here. You can buy it whenever you feel like it, and drop out a chat and figure out what you want to play next. With that said, you can check out other games by Bully Pulpit Games over on bullypulpitgames.com, which I said before includes Fiasco, Starcrossed, the skeletons that we covered last week, and of course the Warren. So we'll go from there and we'll start reading this. Now, would you be surprised if I said that the Warren, the PDF, is 140 pages? A game about living as rabbits and going through their entire generational life cycle is a 140-page game. The download for this game also comes with a guide to character playbook, so different kinds of rabbits you could play as well as their basic moves, and also a quick GM reference or rules, moves, quick guide, so to speak. So these are all things that come with the package that you download online. And let's get into it. It opens with a quote from Watership Down. "All the world will be your enemy, prince of 1,000 enemies, and when they catch you, they will kill you. But first they must catch you. Digger, listener, runner, prince with a swift warning. Be cunning and full of tricks, and your people will never be destroyed." And as we've said before, this game is powered by the Apocalypse in terms of its role system, though it does say it's been heavily modified. Okay, let's take a look at the table of contents. So things that we recognize from other Powered by the Apocalypse games is player moves, basically to take an action that has any sort of unpredictable outcome or an outcome that is left to chance, you leave to player moves. I'm assuming that's the analog to basic moves, but we'll see for sure. The Powered by the Apocalypse system, if you're not familiar, and I'm sure the first couple of words are going to explain how the system works, is that every roll that is left to chance is put up to a roll of 2 6-sided dice, and your success rate depends on what you roll. 1 to 6 is an abject failure, 7 to 9 is a partial success, and 10 to 12 is a total success. The partial success being the most interesting thing to happen, in my opinion, where you do progress what you're trying to do at a cost or consequence. That's basically Powered by the Apocalypse in a nutshell. You can talk about playbooks, which are character sheets that describe what kind of character you're playing or the trope you're leaning into, and it details how you advance and the trajectory of your story. And I feel like those are kind of the 3 core ideas of Powered by the Apocalypse: the 2d6, the basic moves, and the playbooks. So that's cool. There's a section here that tells you about the world that you'll exist in. There's some games that don't spare the pages to give you a setting to work with, just kind of give you the details on how to make your own. I do like when there's a little bit of world building offered, just to help get those gears turning. Cool. Okay, so we're going to check out the first couple pages, of course, get into player moves and see how this differs from most other Powered by the Apocalypse games, and then just a little bit into Game Master moves and what threats and predators might look like. I think that's what's most interesting to me in this table of contents. Okay, a nice hefty foreword. Let's read it. Mankind has always told stories about animals, possibly even before language. Imagine cavemen getting excited over the drawings of megafauna in the caves of Altamira, Lascaux, and Arnhem Land, perhaps acting out the motions of throwing spears with atlatls while shouting and jumping. Every culture has stories of animals, with the animals described ranging from the very natural to highly anthropomorphic, or even the avatars of gods. So when you sit around a table making up animal stories, you are connected to all cultures now and in the past. Many of the folk tales are explanations about nature or the animals themselves. The names of these stories give away what the tale is about: how the zebra got its stripes, why a possum's tail is bare, how the buffalo came to be. Other stories are fables to give guidance or provide a moral. A huge number of these are rightly or wrongly attributed to Aesop, a slave and storyteller of ancient Greece. The ass and the pig, the crow in the pitcher, the dog and its reflection, the fox and the grapes, and of course the tortoise and the hare. Some of these fables are found as a similar story in different cultures, such as variants of the frog and the scorpion and the turtle, the farmer and the viper, and others in which someone assisting another gets paid back foully. But why? It's in my nature. One of the most popular types of animal stories is that of the trickster, an animal that succeeds because of its cleverness instead of size, claws, or fangs. In the southwest of North America, the animal is coyote. On the northwest coast, it is the raven. In Western Africa, it is Anansi, the spider, but every culture has tricksters, though not all of them take animal form, often being some type of spirit or demon. In many of these stories, there seem to be blends of spirit and animal, such as the kitsune foxes or the tanuki raccoon dogs of Japan, the monkey king of China, the kang of the Bushmen, who can shapeshift into any animal, though most often appears as a praying mantis. The trickster is a most appropriate model for stories about rabbits, as you will generate during play of the Warren, since nearly every animal a rabbit encounters is bigger, stronger, and fiercer, and many of them would be happy to eat the rabbit. Brer Rabbit from the Uncle Remus tales and El Amraira from Watership Down are archetypical trickster rabbits. If you have not read those stories, stop now and go find them. Even Loki and Odysseus may have something to learn from trickster rabbits. But when playing a rabbit game, do not feel bound by a particular style or model. There's no reason for your rabbit to not be a fearless hero, charging to attack a threatening fox, or a maternal doe striving to impart caution and wisdom to her kits, or an aging rabbit longing to creep into the garden for one last taste of strawberries. The Warren allows you to add your storytelling to a wonderful and long tradition. Just as people and animals have different personalities, so too do storytellers come in all forms. Whatever story you choose to tell through your rabbit will be the right story, especially if the other players all enjoy the process and share in the adventures. As Richard Adams said, everyone's good depends on everyone's cooperation. And the same is true in game playing. Have fun as you play the Warren and contribute to the world's library of animal stories. Cool. Oh look at this, Thumper. This is the game you mentioned, right? Thumper says one of the very first RPGs was Bunnies and Burrows. Yeah, you mentioned this. How cool. Alright, zoom out so we can see the art. Okay, so this first page seems to be people who are not familiar with RPGs, for people who are not familiar with RPGs, basically explaining the concept that through role-playing games, you narrate adventures and roll dice to determine things that you want to leave to chance. A game mostly conversation and played with friends. If you've played other games, it says in the Warren, players create characters, a community in peril, and play to find out what happens to them. The Warren features rabbit characters, rules that are mostly about the fiction rather than numbers, in a format that is equally suitable for one-shots and campaign play. If you've played other games that are powered by the apocalypse, you'll feel right at home. Your instinct won't lead you astray. Some features to keep an eye out for are claiming player moves from a shared pool, birth and death as part of play, and player-driven move creation. Cool. Alright, some great art. Cool. Okay. It seems like a lot of the first couple pages are a good amount of text, so I'll try to skim through it, or at least give you the general gist of it as I read. The Warren is a game about intelligent rabbits trying to make the best of a world filled with we read this one. Hazards, predators, and worst of all, other rabbits. Warrens are systems of interconnected tunnels and dens dug to shelter a community of rabbits, and they face dangers as well. Inequity, scarcity, and contempt seed dissent within rabbit society, just as they do human society, and ideological differences can destroy a warren as surely as any human machine. The rabbits in your game must decide for themselves what it means to be a rabbit and how to repair and sustain their warren so that it can thrive. This is an interesting situation where this game is about sustaining a home rather than traveling the world. I don't know if the the stories available or the example stories available will lead you outside your warren, but this very much seems like a game focused on protecting where you have settled. I have the scrolling problem I had last time. Let's see if we can do this. Yeah, there's a strange... I have to remember how to fix that. Alright. Warrens start and end at one of many entrances to the surface and include the many bolt holes that surround a warren's perimeter. Underground, rabbits build straightaways or runs that connect the fur-lined burrows where they sleep and birth their young. Right. So a warren is kind of an underground home that's built out of many tunnels. If you know rabbits in real life, that's where they live. Okay, it says here, the warren can be played in a single 2-hour session or over multiple sessions. You need to gather 2 to 4 friends to 3 to 5 people total. Most of you will be playing specific rabbits, but you should pick one to be the game master or GM. People who play rabbits largely control their own individual rabbit. Their rabbit is their player character or PC. The game master, on the other hand, will largely control the rabbit's surroundings, land and weather, and non-player characters. Gameplay in the Warren is broken up into units of play called chapters. Interesting. Each chapter focuses on a specific set of player characters, their fates, and their contributions to the living history of the Warren. Some player characters will survive and others will not, but all will leave their mark. Oh, interesting. So, I've never... Yeah, I could say that. I've never played a game where it is not only encouraged, but foundational that your character ages, dies, and is replaced, right? This game very specifically asks you to retire your character at some point and have it be replaced. And the characters that you guys play as slowly but surely rotate out, is the kind way of saying it, but basically live and die. And at different paces, right? There might be one character that lasts for 3 chapters and one character that only lasts for 1. So a character that starts off young in the first chapter becomes very old in the 3rd and 4th. Or a character can start off old, and then in the next following chapters, you could play as a young character interacting with the older, more storied or wizened rabbits. Cool concept. The game is designed to... Wow, I jumped right into that. Let me try again. The game is designed to play well in a single chapter, to fill a single evening or a slot at a gaming convention. It can also accommodate a series of linked chapters that form a campaign. Depending on how many hours you play, you might even play through more than one chapter in a single session. Subsequent chapters will continue the Warren story. Some PCs will carry over to the new chapter, but others will be new, replacing PCs who were retired during the last chapter, or to allow a player to make new characters. Yep, cool. Be sure to describe setting, team, theme, and tone. Make sure everyone's on the same page in terms of what kind of session they want to have or what kind of game they want to have. You can set it depending on where you want to live within the world. This seems to be very rooted in real Earth. So feel free to pick your favorite biome, feel free to pick your favorite city or countryside, and set your story there. This also tells you that your setting should take place during a certain time, so it can take place during like a yearly annual festival or during a significant landmark in history. Cool stuff. And yeah, so as they've said before, a lot of old stories use animals to represent certain themes, certain motifs, certain emotions, and types of people we interact with. So giving humanoid qualities, giving human qualities to a rabbit, or providing or personifying them, basically, is totally in tune with this game. Let's see. The animals portrayed in the Warren are part of that middle ground, though they are decidedly more like the real-world counterparts than like humans. To an outside observer, animals in the Warren largely appear as they would in our world, but within each species is a very human social environment. In the Warren, animals are self-aware, capable of rational thought, and enjoy rich emotional and intellectual lives. Animals also speak to one another as humans do. Like many groups of humans, animals in this world are primarily concerned with the members of their own species and do not go out of their way to converse with members of other species. Finally, animals in the Warren are considerably less constrained than their real-world counterparts with regard to social organization, falling into the many same ideological traps that human groups do. They don't need to adhere to the strict social hierarchies that exist in real-world rabbit warrens. They are free to live and love as they see fit. Great. And this is basically saying, like, don't get caught up on what real rabbits do. Thumper says, I didn't say what it was Pendragon did. Sorry, it does intergenerational play. Cool. Sick. Wow. Strangely ominous picture. Cool. All right. This is describing flow of game. I imagine this is where it starts taking inspiration from Powered by the Apocalypse. The GM describes... Oh, the players describe their characters' words, thoughts, and actions. The GM describes the world surrounding the PC, inhabitants, and the consequences of their actions. When players describe doing something that is a given, the GM will describe their success. When players describe their PCs doing something that is impossible, the GM will tell them so and describe their failure. The imagined events that everyone is contributing to throughout the conversation is known as the fiction. Yep, we know this. Moves are the core mechanism of the Warren. There are two broad categories, player moves and GM moves. Player moves represent important aspects of being a rabbit. They're broken into three categories: basic moves, special moves, and character moves. Basic moves are things that they do in their day-to-day lives. Special moves are important things that rabbits do, but perhaps less frequently. Character moves are things that make a rabbit unique, a special trait or aptitude that only they possess. Yeah. And it says here, not everything a rabbit does has to be a move. Usually moves are left to things that have some sort of chance. Text of each player moves begins with the trigger. This is also something that's very apocalypsy, where player moves happen as a trigger to something. So when something happens, a player move can activate in response to it. So basically responding to the onus of a stimuli, so to speak, is how players go. So something like, when you are insulted, use this player move. Or when someone acts against you aggressively, use this player move. That's kind of the energy that moves are. And yeah. And moves usually require some sort of resolution, maybe some dice rolling to see how it changes the course of the story. All right, here we go. Rolling dice. As with all PBTA, it is 2 6-sided dice, and then you add or subtract the value of the listed stat from their sum. Rabbits will have stats. I believe it says here, as an example, Swift is one of the stats that will be unique to your character, depending on what they're good at and when they're bad at. Forward, ongoing, and hold is also from Powered by the Apocalypse. Basically, it means when you're reading the mechanism or the mechanical aspects of certain bonuses and dice rolls, the word forward means that you get to add the number to your next roll. Ongoing means you hold on to that benefit and you apply it technically infinitely until written that it ends. And then holding something is to keep it to yourself until you need it. Game Master moves historically in Powered by the Apocalypse do not require rolls. They're often exact what the Game Master says happens, and it is intended to kind of speed up the game. Make sure that the Game Master hits the story beats they require and leaves the randomness of the story to the players. Yeah, it says here, right here, perfect. Unlike players, Game Masters will never need to roll the dice. Game Master moves work a little differently and are more direct, often prompting the Game Master to introduce a specific type of complication or adversity to the story. Soft and hard moves. Soft moves introduce a threat or complication, something that they can respond to, overcome, and avoid. Hard moves introduce the hardship of consequence itself. Okay, good to know. Here's a quote from Margaret Atwood. All fiction is about people, unless it's about rabbits pretending to be people. It's all essentially characters in action, which means characters moving through time and changes taking place, and that's what we call the plot. Okay, playing a rabbit. In the Warren, you start the game as a single player character, a rabbit, through which you interact with the fiction. Throughout the game, you may end up playing other rabbits. As a player, your agenda is to play your character like a real person. That means imbuing them with their own opinions, agendas, hopes, strengths, and foibles. I don't know what foibles... Am I pronouncing that word right? Foibles? Foibles. Hey, Google, tell me how to pronounce foibles. Oh, I don't know if you can hear that. I have a bot that tells me how to pronounce it. There's no way you guys can hear that. Thank you, Google. I forgot the one I use Google Home here, and saying the phrase that triggers Google Home is kind of a what do you call it? Involuntary. Anyway, I'm here to Google how to say foibles. Let me just punch that in. Can I actually have you guys hear what that sounds like? Foible.
Foible. Foible.
It's foible.
Foible.
Foible. Foible.
Foible.
Can you say it slowly?
Foible.
Thank you. Now we know. I still don't know what foible means. A minor weakness or eccentricity. Great SAT word. Eccentricity in someone's character. What if I just start using the word foible in real life? A minor weakness or eccentricity in someone's character. Learning to tolerate each other's foibles. Foibles. I feel like the New Yorker accent really kicks in if you say foible too many times. Foibles. Foibles. Okay. Oh, where were we? Got it. Treat your character like a real person. That's it. Ooh, raccoons. How cute. Oh, look at this. Players should create their characters together at the table rather than in advance of a game. Neat. The first step in creating a PC is choosing a character move. Players should claim their character's moves one at a time, starting with the player newest to roleplay. Character moves are moves that only your rabbit can make, so no two PCs should ever have the same move. Oh, that's a cool way to distribute it. We kind of do that naturally by conferring with each other and making sure that like people don't pick the same, what is it, like class or lineage or playbook, things like that. But this is cool in that like there won't even be overlaps in like talents, so to speak. Obviously all rabbits have the same basic moves, but these character moves are supposed to be entirely unique. And you can absolutely avoid people picking the same character move if you just do it at the table altogether. Really smart. Here are the stats. Strong, swift, shrewd, and steady. Strong is for fighting people. Swift is for escaping things. Shrewd is for assessing situations. And steady are people who are calm under pressure and more likely to birth bigger litters. Good to know. I don't know how important this is. Probably pretty important. And then there's a stat spread you can have to distribute across your 4 stats. So this is a mechanic that is not empowered by the apocalypse. So this is probably what I'm going to be most interested in. Let's find out what this is. Rabbits exist at the very bottom of the food chain. To survive, rabbits must constantly be alert to danger and behave conservatively to avoid putting themselves at risk. When rabbits take risks or are directly threatened, they must struggle to keep it together and risk panicking. Panic often spells doom for a rabbit. In the Warren, each PC has a panic score, which gauges how close that character is to panicking. Crossing an open area, entering a hostile Warren, getting caught in a snare, standing up to a more important or dangerous rabbit, or interacting with a predator that might all constitute taking risks and being threatened and cause that player's panic level to increase. Rabbits that are injured or are birthing a litter are particularly vulnerable to panic. I keep seeing this, and I'm assuming giving birth to new rabbits is part of the game, like a cornerstone of the game, but I'm sure we'll find out. A rabbit's panic level starts at 0, they are totally calm. As things get complicated, player and GM moves will cause the panic level to rise. When a rabbit reaches its maximum panic level, it panics and things get ugly. Each rabbit's maximum panic score starts at 5 and is modified up or down by their steady stat. Cool. Oh, look at this little guy. Okay, let's see. Rabbits are herbivores that live on 6 continents. Rabbits are active in the daytime, at dawn, or at night. They weigh 1 to 4 pounds and can run 18 miles an hour. That's fast. Rabbits have 28 teeth that never stop growing. 2 rows of incisors, but no canines. That makes sense. Rabbits are born blind and nude. They open their eyes at 2 weeks, are weaned at 1 month, and are ready to reproduce at 3 months. Rabbits does average 5 litters of 1 to 12 kits per year, but often have as many as 8 litters. Wow. Rabbits experience 80% mortality by 3 months. By 3 months? And 95% mortality by 1 year? 50% of adult rabbits will die in a given year. Is that true? Do we have any rabbit owners in this house? I didn't know that. Wait, we gotta know for sure. How long do rabbits live? Okay, some are a little longer. Okay, so these are like wild rabbits. It says here 7 to 10 years. Okay, I was gonna say, I'm like, that is a miserable pet if they die within a year. Maybe it's a story beat. And maybe this is probably just wild rabbits. I'm overcomplicating it. This is probably just the life cycle of a wild rabbit rather than a domesticated pet. And you pick names. These are all the names you could pick. Oh, cool. I like coriander. In general, coriander is a cool name. Things that stick out to me are nutmeg, patches, parsley, rainstorm, moon hunter. I like those. Those are nice. Okay. Oh, spooky. Cool art. Okay, here we go. So these are the core moves that rabbits will be doing. These are not unique to each rabbit. These are just what they're able to do. This kind of defines the flow of the game. Basic moves basically help you understand if this game is a heroic leaning game, if it's a tragedy leaning game. What does the game prioritize, and what does the game leave to chance? That's kind of what you're looking at player moves to do. So let's find out what the basic moves are. The first one is resist panic, which certainly speaks a certain tone of the game, right? If the first move you're reading in the moves available to all characters is resist panic, then this is certainly a game that is supposed to cause just a little bit of stress. When you expose yourself to new dangers, roll plus steady. On a 10 plus, you're unshaken. 7 to 9, you manage to keep it together, but take 1 panic. And on a miss, you take 1 panic. The GM may tell you that your action requires that you must resist panicking when you're exposed. That could mean crossing an open area, standing up to an authority figure, becoming trapped, or any other situation where threats might exist. If the roll succeeds, you've accomplished the mission, and if you've exceeded your maximum panic, bad things happen. We should probably check out what the bad things happen is in terms of panic. That seems pretty core. Speak plainly. This is clearly the social information gathering ability. On a 7 to 9, they do as you ask, provided you meet one of their demands. So this is how you ask NPCs to do things for you. And when you do a partial success, again, the odds of rolling a partial success is not above 50%, if I understand it correctly, right? That's how numbers work on 2d6s, because 7 is the most common number and 8 the second most common. I want to say it's around 45-ish% chance of partial success, but someone can correct me on the numbers. So on a partial success, basically, this is kind of the exchange. You get exactly what you want, but at the price of something you have to do. And this is kind of what drives the story forward, these partial successes. It's a great example of like, you give something, the game master gives something. It's kind of a give and take exchange. And since you both have input, the story moves in ways both of you didn't predict, which is nice. All right, I'll skim through these next couple. Pay attention. When you give your full attention, roll plus shrewd. On a 10 plus, hold 2. 7 and hold 1. Oh, holding 2 basically means you can... This seems like the preparation one. So you can kind of hold these for a future use. And this is the information gathering one. For sure. Ben Bunn. Hello. Nice to see you here. This game is a little serious, for the record, which probably isn't too foreign of an idea to someone who's a fan of bunny and rabbit related media, because you've probably encountered Watership Down or Redwall at least once. But this game is, if you missed the intro to this game, about the generational families of rabbits that live in a warren and the social, hierarchical, and environmental obstacles that they have to overcome to persist as a family. So it leans tragedy, but it's certainly something that holds onto the idea of a community and family and sticking together, things like that, despite your differences. Oh, cool. Then welcome. And of course, after this stream, if you missed anything, there's the VOD that you could always check to catch the first half hour you missed. Anyway, let's just bounce back real quick. Resist panic, your ability to resist the dangers of the world and not fall into panic, which is basically anytime you're exposed. Speaking plainly is your ability to exchange information or favors from NPCs. Pay attention is your ability to learn more about the world and its people. And then bolt is your ability to run away, is what I assume. On a 10 plus, you run like the wind. On a 10 7 to 9, you run fast enough, but you choose one. You don't end up exactly where you intended. It takes more out of you than you thought, and it's much closer than you care for. Take +1 panic. So things can happen. But if one of the key mechanics of a game is running away, then understandably this game is fairly dangerous. Sneaking is self-explanatory. Helping or hindering is your ability to help another rabbit, which is probably very useful to a game like this. again, they mention birthing a litter, which means that having babies is really important. I can only imagine that because character moves are limited to one character per person, there are very common situations where one character is going to give birth during the chapter. I feel like that's probably a foundational point, where there is one member of the Warren that has to be protected at all times, regardless of the role, and their survival means the birth of a new generation of rabbits. Seems pretty key, since this is the third time we're seeing it in this book. But yeah, and if, of course, if you missed the intro, a lot of thematic beats take hints from Watership Down. So, understandably, there are reasons to be scared or concerned in terms of tragic rabbit stories. All right, special moves. These are rarer. They happen less often. They might happen during periods of calm or periods of severe stress. We'll see what happens. There is relax, which subtracts panic. Very clearly, this doesn't require any sort of roll, which is nice. Struggle. This is when you're in a tough situation, and it says on a 79 you can wriggle free if you're willing to take a scar. Pretty cool. This is also an escape mechanism, but it taps into your strength rather than your speed. Competing. This is when you have interplayer conflicts or inter-character conflicts. How to determine who wins. Cool. Digging is your ability to shift dirt, and a core component of creating a warren in the first place. And there's mate. Huh. Okay, so we could take some time to read this. This is pretty important, right? When you mate with another rabbit, take +1 ongoing to help or hinder that rabbit until you mate with somebody else. If you are different genders, both of you hide 0 or 1 die in your fist. Both of you hide 0 or 1 die in your fist. On the count of 3, open your hands. 2 dice mean the doe is pregnant, and she may give birth whenever it feels right. That's good. That's a good mechanic. This is understandably, like, this is basically consent, right? Because you can choose whether to have 0 or 1 die, and it requires 1 die from each person to have a baby. That means it has to be a personal choice from both players, which makes a lot of sense. Interesting to gamify it, but I do like this mechanic. Mating is a crucial part of rabbit life, and many rabbits may mate. Mating intensifies rabbits' relationships and provides insight into each other's disposition. Mating can also result in pregnancy. In the wild, rabbits can birth many litters over the course of their lives, but if being pregnant slowed them down, there wouldn't be nearly so many rabbits today. Of course, every litter is different. The experience of pregnancy and its aftermath is largely up to that rabbit's player. And of course, if you're uncomfortable with this, you're welcome to remove it from your game or introduce the X card to talk when meeting topics or themes that you are uncomfortable with. Of course, this is something that you should probably discuss before the game. Okay, and if you feel uncomfortable, an alternative is simply using the best friend mechanic, which is cool. Yeah, because you want to make sure that you can still tap into like the mechanical benefit of using the mate move. Nice. Elegant. All right, this is what we want to know about. What is so important about having baby rabbits? Why have they brought it up 3 times? And obviously, in an intergenerational game where rabbits are basically expected to die eventually and be replaced by their next generation, how do they handle this in the game form? This is where we find out. Surely. Birth a litter. When you birth a litter, roll and subtract your current panic. To determine the number of kits that are born. On a 10 plus, it's an unusually sizable litter. Increase your panic to maximum. On a 7 to 9, a normal sized litter is by no means easy. Take +2 panic. On a 6 less, it's all just too much and few if any survive. Oh, that's tragic. The GM still gets to make a hard move, but this is a good time to check in and make sure other players are comfortable with the fiction. Dang, that's rough. Other PCs can help or hinder a doe, modifying her roll or panic to achieve a desired outcome. Thank you, Ben Bun, for dropping by. I really appreciate it. Feel free to check out the VOD after you're done. Birthing litters is one outcome of mating and important for the health and growth of a warren. Of course, a doe may birth a litter when the time feels right. The process takes about 15 minutes in the fiction. Of course, sometimes the best time is precisely the worst times. Of course, dramatic childbirth is a cornerstone for suspenseful movies. When the birth is finished, named the kits. They are hairless and fragile now, but by the next chapter, they will be out on their own. If you know you don't want to play out the actual birthing at the table, triggered at the end of a chapter, you'll still birth some new rabbits, but it can all happen off screen between chapters. Fantastic. Simple. Doesn't have to be more complicated than that, right? So the whole point of this is to establish in the story something probably almost certainly very important to rabbit society, which is making sure there's enough rabbits to continue supporting the family and the warren. This is also a fantastic opportunity, as I said, at the end of a chapter to introduce new characters in the next chapter of the game. And you can retire some characters that are maybe too old to travel or too old to help the warren, and introduce these new babies that just might have a very potent story behind them, right? I'm imagining scenes where a rabbit is about to birth a litter, but it's like a thunderstorm and there's a coyote out there, and you just have to keep her hidden until the babies are born, for things like that, right? And then the characters playing in the next generation can be those babies, and they can have that backstory, and you can have this old rabbit be like, when I was your age, I saw that you were born in a thunderstorm. That's why we named you Cloud Strife. You know, like that's kind of the energy you're going for, right? Which is cool. Clearly, if you are, in my head, right, if you were to make this a foundational moment, I keep saying foundational because I can't remember the synonyms of it. But if this is supposed to be a key moment in your story, clearly you want to make it dramatic. You want to make it at precisely the worst time. I like how they phrased it. So, anyway, innovate is to be creative. I'm probably going to skim the rest because this was the one I was most interested in. Time goes by. Oh, whoa. When months or seasons pass, roll the dice. As a group, decide which die represents births and which represent deaths. Add rabbits to the warden according to the birth die, and subtract rabbits from the warden according to the death die. Wow. This move is especially useful when you want to play a game of the warden with children, or when players do not wish to incorporate the mate or birth litter moves into the game. Makes a lot of sense. It allows the warden's population to grow and change without the PC's direct contribution. This is also a useful move for connecting one chapter to the next. Great, elegant thing. I very much appreciate that this game... takes the time to introduce a mechanic where bunnies are being born, or rabbits are being born, and rabbits are being pregnant, and is mature enough to understand that will be a problem for some people, and kind enough, or at least cognizant enough to provide a number of alternative ways to still make that happen with the least amount of people being grossed out or put off, right? Good instincts, I guess. Because I don't know if I would want to RP that. It could be fun, it could not. I'm not positive, but if it was truly an unavoidable aspect of the game, it's great that there's multiple ways to address it. Fantastic. Okay, retiring is also part of that. Advancement, we talked about character moves. When you advance, you get a new character move and totally unique to you. Okay. And, panicking. This was a really important mechanic we talked about earlier. When you panic, you're in a bad spot. When a PC reaches their maximum panic, they temporarily lose control, and the GM gets to decide which of the rabbit's instincts take hold. Fight, flight, or fright. Fight is you flail wildly. Flight is you run blindly, and fright is you flee. A rabbit that succumbs to panic is a rabbit that is at its most vulnerable. Without help, they're at everyone's mercy, and no one needs roll to act against them. The GM will simply narrate the outcomes of any actions taken by PCs or NPCs. A panicked rabbit that is neither injured nor threatened will eventually regain their wits all on their own, or not until the situation changes and the GM gives the all clear. Nice. This is also kind of a call to action for other players when they notice one of their teammates or one of their Warren mates is panicking. Great little segue into supporting each other and making sure that the party does its best to stay together. I think team building mechanics are really important in tabletop RPGs, so that basically like purposefully cooking in mechanics that make it basically optimal to help your teammate. Not that you really need a reason to, but at least to help people more focus on the numbers really buy into the fiction by making them interact with other people. Okay, I'm not really going to go into fighting for now. With the time we have left, which isn't too much, I want to take a look at playbooks. I want to know just a couple examples of what kind of rabbits we could be playing here, and a little peek into the setting, and I think that's all I'm going to do today. So let's get into the playbook and see what that's about. Let me see, are any of these different? Are all these playbooks exactly the same? Let me just double check. Okay, they do differ in... Okay, they do differ in names. So the only thing that changes from this collection of playbooks is the names here and the portrait. I think the rest is pretty darn straightforward. So yeah, this is just so like you can see that the rabbit looks a little different here. Because as we read earlier, the real way that rabbits distinguish themselves from each other is age or generation, as well as character moves. So I kind of want to look at character moves then. Let's figure out if we can grab a couple of those. Thumper says, I want to know what an adventure looks like. Yeah, I'll take a look at those towards the end. So these are character moves. Character moves are, again, things that you choose from. Things that you choose from together as a party, as a table, and you're never supposed to take something that someone else has taken. For example, if someone takes charismatic, no one else at the table can take charismatic. And even when the party advances, you can't take anything that has been taken at any point before within the story. So, pretty cool. This is kind of how you guarantee that these characters or these rabbits will be distinct from each other, because there won't be any overlap. Look at this one. Gray fur. You are old. When others come to you and seek guidance, give it. They gain +1 forward if they do as you advise. Dead eyes. You have learned to focus through pain, probably in some terrible war and far away. At any time, you can take a scar. Ooh, sick. To return your panic score to 0. Wow. That seems pretty good. All you got to do is take a scar. Okay, let's see. Dull and keen. One of your senses is dull, but another is almost supernaturally keen to compensate. You can never pay attention with the dull one, but pay attention being a move if we remember. But teach a 7+ as a 10+ with the keen one. Fantastic. There's similar things to that kind of improve your outcomes. You've never met an animal you couldn't outrun. When you both treat a 6 or less as a 7 to 9. And then, where is it? Fertile, when you birth a litter, choose a number between 2 and 12 instead of rolling. Oh, fantastic. So there's like a guaranteed success, so to speak. And then marked for death. You are ill-fated and everyone knows you won't last long. How will you be remembered? Start with one additional character move when you make your next rabbit. I see. So this is very specifically for people who know they want to die early in the story and are looking to play another character to replace them. Interesting. I do like that. Okay. This is a good view of all the different character moves, which is somewhere in the ballpark of 30, I think, right? Available here. So let's take a look at a little bit at the adventure, or at least a couple of story beats, and see what kind of game we can play here. Let's see. Yeah, let's look at the world. Okay, this is an example of a setting. The fallow meadow lies nearby the town of Abingdon. Stories tell of a time when the meadow was planted with barley, but the overgrown meadow has long since gone to seed. Humans still come to hunt for rabbits caught out in the open, but at least they've let the warren be. Pretty tame setting here. And then this also offers these are details of what could be different about your warren or what you iron out about your warren. Things about relationships between rabbits and how the family dynamic goes, situation and stakes. So these are kind of useful for playing in this setting in particular. Yeah, and it lists predators, it lists threats, things that could throw your warren awry. And then here's another one. Here's an example of a different setting. It's not just a meadow. Bayou Dupree. Dupree? Oh, written by Jason Morningstar. This is the guy who wrote the Skeletons. Cool. When things are tough all over in the bayou. We've all got to stay sharp because everyone around here wants to eat us, to be alert. Everybody hungry, everybody like a nice piece of rabbit. We got to be smarter than them and fast too. We can't swim like the swamp rabbits, but who wants to swim? If we were meant to swim, we'd have fins. We can't climb like a squirrel, but if we were meant to climb, we'd be dumb as rocks like them. Cool. So this seems more like a fast-paced dog-eat-dog world type of setting, which is neat. Okay, and then I'm assuming these are for how to get your story started, and how to begin the onus of change, essentially. I don't think they have any specific story examples, so no specific modules for the warren as far as I know, but these are good resources to begin a chapter, understand the situation that you want them to work their way out of, and how to end the chapter and move on to the next generation. So a lot of very useful game master stuff. Let's see, running the game starts on page 51 and ends on page 81. So 30 pages of game master tips for this type of game. Okay, I think that's a good amount of information about this game. I don't want to read the entirety of the book, of course, because I'll leave that up to you. If this is the kind of game you're interested in, if you're looking for a story about family and community and overcoming adversity as little rabbits in a world that seeks to threaten, eat, and kill you, if you're looking to play as small animals but don't want it to be too cutesy or too lighthearted, if you're looking for depth, if you're looking for character growth, if you're looking for multi-generational families continually, relentlessly protecting each other from the dangers of the world around them, you should probably check out The Warren. You can find this game again on itch.io. The website, you can find it at bullypulpitgames.itch.io/the-warren, which is a link in the description below. And check out the rest of Bully Pulpit's games because they are very well known for having fantastic experiences in a very brief amount of time. So, with that said, next week we're going to be covering the game Thursday by, and I'm going to get this pronunciation wrong, Eli Sates, or Eli, E-L-I, space, S-E-I-T-Z. That's next week, next Tuesday. The game is called Thursday, but we're streaming on Tuesday, so I hope to see you guys then. Have a wonderful night. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, stay frosty. Goodbye.